Good day, everyone. I'm Major Joel Searles here with the Entertainment Media Liaison Office. We've got another great interview for our series of hard charging. It's with the team from Project Recover, which is an organization that goes and researches, finds, and repatriates missing in action American troops back here to the U.S. and provides closure for their families. Today, I've got Dr. Derek Abbey and Dr. Pat Scannon here.
Good, thank you
for having us.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thanks. Great to have you, gents. And then I've got my new partner who I'll be turning over to. He will take over my position in interviewing and conducting these hard charging events, Major Tyler Lewis.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Thank you guys so much for having us. We really appreciate it.
What made you want to start Project Recover?
Well, I guess I'm the one to answer that one. In 1993, I was part of a team that, a dive team that went to look for a ship that had been sunk by then Ensign George Herbert Walker Bush. We found it, but while I was there, came across a wing of a B-24 that was just sitting next to an island which no one knew about. And it had a profound emotional impact because, you know, I knew, and I think it does directly impact on my military background that, you know, World War II had a lot of losses and things that were never explained, but I'd never confronted them before. And seeing this wing really made me wonder, well, where's the rest of the plane? And then by extension, once I started doing a little work, I realized there were many Americans missing in action in aviation, on land, underwater. And I just felt something needed to be done. And I decided to do something about it.
You know, would you want to talk about some of the different milestones there from your progression in the 90s and 2000s briefly?
Yeah, briefly. For the first couple of years, I started, this was in the Republic of Palau. I started going to the archives, the Marine archives, the Air Force archives, and the National Archives, and started accumulating a lot of information about aircraft missing. There's a surprising amount of material that I was able to find on Palau, and I started going back. And the first 2 years, I started either diving myself or diving with myself, or going into the jungles myself. And I learned pretty quickly, particularly after one mission in the mangroves, that that's probably not a bright idea. And decided I needed to start thinking about, you know, are there other people that might be interested? And between 1996 and 2000, I started, I guess the word is experimenting, but really trying to see who would be the right kind of people to join. By 2000, I started to put together a team, the foundation of which are still with us. And we worked together exclusively in Palau till 2014, I guess. And then we started working closely with the Scripps Institution of Oceanography and the University of Delaware teams, who greatly expanded our capabilities for doing underwater searches and bringing a lot of much higher technology into our searches. And shortly thereafter, we expanded globally, and we've gone from one country to now 21 countries around the world where we've conducted search and even recovery missions. So it's been an explosive growth. But because of the foundations that we had as a team, we knew the kind of people we could work with. And as a result, this expanded growth has been something that we've been able to really manage and manage successfully.
Thank you for that, Pat. Something came to mind there with your discussion and points. Did you ever cross paths with Robert Ballard, the man who discovered the Titanic and the Bismarck?
No, I often talk about he and I work in different territories. He works in really deep water,
Yeah.
and we work in very shallow water. Although more recently, the Scripps people are now conducting search missions with their vehicles and ROVs down to over 1,000 feet deep. So I thought about it the other day that we're starting to encroach on what I call Bob Ballard territory.
That's great territory to be in. Would you like to take the next shot there, Major Lewis?
Yeah, absolutely. Gentlemen, I know that both of you have a military background, and that's something that we're very much interested in talking about. Could you just expound a little bit about your experiences, both of your individual experiences in the military, and just a few of the like jobs, places, events that you took part in?
Well, I'll start. Mine's mine's really simple. I'm a medical doctor, and so my active duty military training was at Letterman Army Medical Center in San Francisco, which
Right.
doesn't exist anymore, and did my residency in internal medicine. Because I have a PhD in chemistry, the Army felt that I should apply my knowledge in medical research. And so I finished my residency, and they immediately moved me into the Letterman Army Institute of Research, where I conducted research on artificial blood substitutes. And then shortly thereafter, around 1981, I left the Army and started a biotech company. And so in many respects, the kind of things that I did in the military, both medical and research, gave me the inspiration for applying it in this new area called biotechnology, which was new at the time. So I'm very grateful for my military background. And although I got to say most of it was wearing a coat and wearing a stethoscope, but I truly enjoyed my time in the military.
Mine was I always say my career was kind of a fairy tale. If you heard me talking about it at your local drinking establishment, you might think I had a little bit too much to drink. I grew up in and around Seattle, Washington, and kind of ran away to the Marine Corps when I was barely 18. Enlisted right out of high school, and was initially a communicator, and was based also at a base that no longer exists, El Toro, down in Southern California. After my first enlistment, I was selected for a commissioning program called MESEP, where they send you to college, and they sent me to Oregon State University, and I got a couple of degrees in history at Oregon State, and was commissioned a ground officer. All Marine officers, especially on this call, know that you have to go to the basic school for 6 months. And while I was at the basic school, I was selected for an aviation contract and sent to flight school. I actually had really no interest in flying and hated flight school, but I did well. And if I was going to fly, I wanted to be in the aircraft that I thought was the best, which was the F-18 at the time, and ended up being winged in F-18 Wizzo. Was winged in right before 9/11. I was actually in flight school during 9/11, airborne down close to down in Key West, close to Cuba, and I was blocking up aircraft with the radar, and they came over the radio and said that we had to return to base immediately, and I had thought I had done something wrong, but it was a response to the 9/11 attacks, but was winged shortly after that, and deployed right away after being winged. Went to Kuwait and played a part in Operation Southern Watch, and then was airborne over Iraq when OAF 1 kicked off, and got to do some amazing things in the F-18, penetrating into enemy airspace, supporting Marines, soldiers, sailors, everybody else on the ground at the moment with close air support. Did multiple tours in the F-18, did the second Fallujah campaign, doing close air support in an urban environment and supporting elections and other things like that. And after an extended and successful time in the F-18. I actually left the F-18 community, became a plank holder with Marine Special Operations Command at what's now 1st Raider Battalion on the West Coast, and got to hang out with some more impressive people and did a deployment with them to Afghanistan, supporting special operations in mostly Western Afghanistan and Helmand Valley. And after that, was actually selected for another education program and sent back to school to get my master's, where I studied higher education leadership and did some work with military and higher education research related to military and higher education and what campuses were doing with that community. And my twilight tour was running the schoolhouse out in North Carolina, during the trainer school, which is not flying jets and not special operations, but it was a nice twilight tour for me. And I retired in 2014. Initially was working in the higher education space while I finished a doctorate at the University of San Diego. I ran military programs at both San Diego State and the University of San Diego, and have been active in the nonprofit space. Been part of this organization now for more than 17 years, and have been the president and CEO for more than 2 years now.
How was it, being on set and there and filming your documentary, To What Remains?
I don't know if I would call it a set. Would you?
On location.
Yeah,
On location.
On location.
Yeah. Go ahead, Pat.
Around 2010, a book was published on our work called Vanished. It was written by a guy by the name of Will Hilton. He spent a number of years with us, and he walked with us in the field, scuba dived with us, and put together a story around some of the findings that we had at that time. And the book served as a template, and several people actually approached us about doing various kinds of documentation. And quite honestly, we were very mission oriented and really didn't want to have anything to do with film crews, to your point. And but we had one significant opportunity where a gentleman who has strong Hollywood connections, which meant that he had really superb equipment and capabilities, approached me about putting together a documentary. And I talked about it with the team. We decided this was a unique opportunity and decided to go ahead and do it. And we thought, it's going to be one guy with a camera and maybe, one of those fluffy things they put over your head to listen so they can hear what we say. They brought an entire Hollywood scale camera crew they had, I can't even begin to describe how much equipment they had. They had drones that would carry the cameras. They had underwater dive camera experts that are well known, famous in their fields for underwater imagery. And actually, as far as we concerned, we decided we're going to go on the mission and they can follow us. And that's pretty much what happened. At least that's what I remember of it. In fact, I hardly remember any exception to that, except a couple times they wanted to capture certain sounds like bubbles under the water or something. And so we would sit there and blow bubbles if they wanted it. But other than that, it was pretty innocuous. We were able to conduct the mission and not have any problem. They were there for 2 seasons. And so they saw a fair amount of stuff while we were there, both on land and underwater. And then they brought all their film back and began putting together the documentary, which took almost 7 years from the first time, they started to, its completion. Derek, what do you remember?
I remember a lot of the same things, and kind of, we are, as Pat mentioned, very, very mission focused. We're here to do work, and we have one thing in mind, and that's finding and ultimately repatriating some of these that are missing. And I think my initial thought with the film is really an inconvenience, but as the process moved along, and I saw the passion develop in the filmmakers and those behind the camera and behind the equipment, really investing in our mission and seeing the importance of telling the story, which they did an incredible job doing. Then I was very much in support of it, and was excited to see what they developed. And as Pat mentioned, the process took a long time, and they were in the field with us for a couple of years, but then they also were able to capture the entire story arc, which you'll get in the film. Not only the search, location, and identification of these sites, but then, the important piece of it is when they're repatriated and the impact that it has on these families and the greater community around it. So as that kind of started to develop and show itself in the story and the film, in the process of making it, I became very, very excited. And now seeing what they've created with it, I'm super happy that we were able to go through the process with them, because I think they've created an incredible product that tells the story and explains the impact very, very well.
The thing that is most exciting to us about the filming of this was the crew enjoyed seeing us do our work in the field, but they really became involved when they saw us start interacting with the families and seeing what the impact of our work had on the families. And they worked very hard to try to capture those emotions, which I think is the real differentiator in this film. There have been plenty of documentaries about World War II. I think the impact of war and the impact on families who've never had questions answered until this work was done comes across very strongly in this. I give full credit to the individual behind this, Dan Friedkin, who made not only the investment in terms of the production of this, but he spent time with us in the field to really understand, and we consider him a team member. He put his time with us in the field, and will do so again. So it's a very unique setting that where all of this came together.
One of the things that me and Major Lewis talked about, here on the documentary is the fact it's so touching and has such a great emotional life to it, and it ebbs and flows, and it has these peaks and kind of valleys in the story, and it's probably one of the top documentaries I've watched in the last 5 years. And not only just because of the beautiful cinematography work, but the emotional insight that you get into people and what they've gone through when their loved ones don't come home. And you have some of that with, the theatrical films like Saving Private Ryan, and, what it's like to lose, or the concept of trying to of losing a loved one in a war. However, this is real, and this brings a part of history that's not always talked about to light, and it should provide a lot of insight.
Well, one of the very interesting things about this documentary is on the front end of it, we told him there's no guarantee we will find any aircraft. I mean, we went through many seasons where we wouldn't find anything, and they took that risk. Not only that, but your point about the arc is very important. We didn't know, would any of it come to any kind of a conclusion so that you could kind of complete a documentary to tell the whole story. But it all worked out, and they were willing to take the time to wait it out, see what was found. And that's why some of the things that go on at the very end are so special, because none of us knew when. We couldn't have even dreamed that some of the results from the movie as we were filming it.
Well, one of the things I love about the film that I find it's fascinating is how it weaves the present and the past, and it kind of the timeline bounces back and forth, and then you have this connection of those two timelines between R.V. Bergen and Marcus Luttrell, too. So, you know, the warrior then and now, there's not much difference, but then there's lessons to be learned, and there's a reason to pay attention to these stories to the past and from connected to the past, and to keep telling them, and why it has a positive impact on people today.